The plane landed at JFK exactly at 2000 a.m. I dragged my suitcase out of the terminal, looking at the familiar New York skyline. An unexpected sense of anticipation bloomed in my chest. This overseas business trip for project negotiations was supposed to take half a month, but I had worked around the clock to finish a week early, all to surprise Damien. We had been married for 3 years. Honestly, our relationship couldn't be described as passionate, but we treated each other with respect. He was the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, the ruler of a massive corporate empire. People in his circle called him Mr. Sterling. They said he was decisive and ruthless in business, but at home, he treated me decently enough. Every month, he transferred a generous allowance of $10,000 into my personal account, and on holidays, someone always delivered gifts from him. Though it was painfully obvious, his assistant picked them out. Most of them remained unopened in their boxes. Hill got into an Uber Black and gave the address of his private estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. He had recently told me the company was working on a massive merger and that he was frequently working past midnight. To make things easier, he decided to stay at the Greenwich estate. I had offered to pack some fresh clothes for him, but he brushed it off, saying the house was fully stocked. The ride took about 45 minutes before we pulled up to the entrance of the exclusive gated community. Security here was incredibly strict, but my ID got me right through. After all, my name was the only one on the deed to that multi-million-dollar property. It was funny to think back on it. When Damien bought the estate, he said it was my wedding gift and put only my name on the paperwork. I had been so deeply moved. I thought that even though this man wasn't one for words, deep down, he truly loved me. Now I realized the truth. The house was in my name, but he lived in it, and I had no say in the matter. What a calculated move. I scanned my fingerprint at the door and dragged my suitcase inside. It was dead silent. The landscape lights cast a dim yellow glow, and the only sound was the occasional chirp of crickets. As I approached the main house, I saw lights on, still awake at 2:00 am. I frowned, thinking, is this workaholic seriously still at his desk? I was about to ring the doorbell when I noticed the front door was slightly ajar. It wasn't locked. My chest went ice cold, and a terrible premonition washed over me. I pushed the door open gently and stepped into the foyer. The living room was empty, but 2 jackets were thrown carelessly over the designer sofa. One was a men's gray suit jacket. I remember Damon wearing it last week. The other was an elegant pink women's blazer, a designer brooch sparkling on the lapel. A woman's blazer. I stared at that pink jacket for 10 full seconds, my mind completely blank. Then I heard sounds coming from the second floor. They weren't voices. They were heavy, breathless, unmistakable moans. I closed my eyes, took 3 deep breaths, and opened them again, dragging my suitcase behind me. I took it step by step up the grand staircase. My heels clicked loudly against the hardwood floor, but the people upstairs seemingly couldn't hear it or simply didn't care. The master bedroom door was also ajar, leaving a narrow gap. I peered through it and saw a scene I would never forget for the rest of my life. Damien, shirtless, was propped up against the headboard holding a woman in his arms. She was wearing my silk nightgown. Her hair was a mess, and she was pressed against his chest, acting coy. Her face was painfully familiar. Sarah Sutton, Damon's executive assistant, the exact same woman who gave me a sweet smile every time I visited the office, respectfully calling me Mrs. Sterling. Damon, tell me, when is she coming back? Sarah cooped softly. I'm so sick of hiding. It's agonizing. Damon leaned down and kissed her forehead. His voice was low and tender, a tone I had never heard him use with me. Soon, next week, when she gets back, I'll find an excuse to transfer you to the Chicago branch. I'll make you a regional manager there. Will she figure it out? Sarah pouted. What if she throws a fit? Throw a fit. Damien chuckled coldly. She wouldn't dare. She's a small town. Nobody from Ohio with 0 connections. Marrying me was the greatest thing that ever happened to her. She wouldn't last a day without me. Don't worry. Even if she finds out, She'll swallow it silently. Sarah giggled and wrapped her arms around his neck. I knew my Damien was the best. So, when are you going to divorce her and marry me? Soon. Damien pinched her cheek. As soon as I trick her into signing over her shares, she'll be useless to me. I'll toss her $1 million settlement, send her packing, and marry you. Sarah rubbed against him happily. You better keep your word. Have I ever lied to you? Damien rolled over, hovering above her. But right now, you need to make this up to me. I stood outside the door, listening to the sounds emanating from the room. My knuckles turned white from gripping the suitcase handle so tightly. Strangely, I didn't even cry. I thought I would break down, storm into the room, catch them in the act, and scream hysterically. But in that moment, only one voice echoed in my head. Anna, look closely. This man isn't worth a single tear. I pulled out my iPhone, hit record on the video camera, and pushed the door open. The hinges squeaked. The two figures on the bed froze. Damon whipped his head around. Seeing me, the flush of passion vanished from his face, replaced by a deathly pallor. Anna. He instinctively tried to cover Sarah, but she was already screaming, pulling the duvet over her head. I leaned against the door frame, phone in hand, a faint smile actually forming on my lips. Keep going. Don't stop on my account. I haven't recorded everything yet. Damien's face twisted in panic. He scrambled for his clothes, stammering, Anna, listen to me. This isn't what you think. What is it then? I tilted my head. You were just discussing how to scam me out of my shares and throw me out on the street. I heard everything. Damien, are you going to tell me you were just joking? Sarah, hiding beneath the covers, didn't dare show her face. Only her terrified eyes peeked out at me. Damon finally found his pants, pulled them on, and jumped off the bed, walking toward me. He reached out to snatch my phone, but I took a step back and dropped it into my purse. Anna calmed down. He took a deep breath, trying to look composed. I'm at fault here, but we can talk this out like adults. What kind of compensation do you want? Name your price. I'll agree to anything. I looked at him, and I actually found it hilarious. This man had just been discussing with his mistress how to throw me out with nothing, and now he had the nerve to talk about compensation. I shook my head. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. Damien, we're getting a divorce. His expression froze instantly, then shifted into a sneer of pure contempt. Divorce? Anna, have you lost your mind? Do you know what you are without me? Nothing. Your house, your car, the money in your bank account. Which of those didn't come from me? Without me, you won't even have a roof over your head. Sarah poked her head out from under the blanket and said quietly, Mrs. Sterling, don't be rash. Mr. Sterling has treated you very well, all things considered. I turned to her and smiled gently. Sarah, that's my nightgown. Do me a favor, wash it and give it back. Also, my name is the only one on the deed to this estate. So, strictly speaking, you are sleeping with my husband in my house. You really know how to pick a spot. Sarah's face turned crimson instantly. Damon's face darkened further. Anna, don't push your luck. He hissed. I didn't become the CEO of Sterling Enterprises by playing nice. Be a good girl, and I'll let you keep your dignity. Dare to cause a scene, and I will destroy you in this city. All right, I nodded. Well, see tomorrow morning, 9:00 a.m. at your lawyer's office in Manhattan. With that, I turned around, walked downstairs, grabbed my suitcase, and step by step walked out of the estate I had once called home. Behind me, I heard the sound of shattering glass and Sarah's hypocritical attempts at comforting him. I walked out the gates. The night air chilled my face. I looked up at the sky. The moon was full, the stars bright. I pulled out my phone and stared at the contact listed as Dad. After a second of hesitation, I decided against calling. Not yet. First, I needed to finalize the divorce. I ordered an Uber and put in the address for the Plaza Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. After I got in, the driver glanced at me in the rear view mirror. He probably thought it was strange for a woman with luggage to be heading to a hotel at 3:00 a.m., but he didn't ask. I leaned against the window, watching the city lights blur past. Damon said I was nothing without him. He didn't know that I, Anna Preston, was never just a small-town nobody. And he certainly didn't know that his precious sterling enterprises was pocket change to my father. He thought he had a golden canary locked in a cage, never realizing he had just personally thrown away a gold mine. What a pity. By the time I checked into the hotel, dawn was breaking. Lying in the plush bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Images played on a loop in my mind. Damon holding Sarah. His words about how I wouldn't last a day without him. Sarah in my nightgown with her fake smile. The more I thought about it, the clearer my mind became. Eventually, I gave up on sleep entirely. I grabbed my phone, opened my Chase banking app, and checked my assets. Over 3 years of marriage, Damon had transferred $10,000 a month for my personal use. I rarely spent it, and combined with my savings from before the marriage, I had about $400,000 in liquid cash. On top of that, I held the deed to the Greenwich estate and a Porsche, both entirely in my name. With $400,000, I could live very comfortably abroad for a long time. As for the house and the car, they were marital assets, and in a divorce, I was legally entitled to my share. But I knew perfectly well that a man like Damien would never play fair. He would undoubtedly bring in a team of cutthroat corporate lawyers, bury me in paperwork, or try to leave me with absolutely nothing. But it didn't matter. What was truly valuable to me, he couldn't touch. At 800 a.m., my phone rang. It was Damien. I answered. His voice was growly, reeking of a hangover. He sounded exhausted. Anna, where are you? Which hotel? I'm coming to get you. We need to have a serious talk. His tone softened like he was coaxing a child. No need, I said. The law firm opens at 9:00. Meet me there. Silence hung on the line for a few seconds before Damien's tone shifted. Restrained anger bled into his words. Anna, are you doing this on purpose? I told you last night was a mistake, but I can compensate you. What do you want? 1 million? 2 million? Name your price. I don't want your money. I just want a divorce. He took a deep breath. Do you think a divorce is a game? Let me tell you, it's not as simple as you think. You know exactly what kind of connections I have in New York. You hire a lawyer. I'll make sure nobody takes your case. You take it to a judge. I'll drag it out until you're bankrupt. Do you believe me? I believe you. Damon Sterling really did have that kind of power in New York. But I had no intention of fighting a war of attrition with him here. Damien, my voice was perfectly level. 9,000 a.m. at your lawyer's office. If you aren't there, I will upload last night's video to Twitter, send it to your board of directors, and blast it to all your clients. Let's see what's stronger. Your connections are my evidence. You wouldn't dare try me. I hung up. 20 minutes later, he called back. This time, his tone was entirely subdued. There was even a hint of pleading. Anna, let's just talk about this reasonably. Okay, don't do anything stupid. I wronged you, but I really don't want a divorce. We've been husband and wife for 3 years. Can't you give me one more chance? Husband and wife for 3 years. The words echoed in my mind, leaving behind only disgust. 900 a.m. I said, at your lawyer's. Bring your ID and the paperwork. I won't wait if you're late. After hanging up, I got up, washed my face, and did my makeup. I deliberately chose a striking red dress and applied a bold crimson lipstick. Looking in the mirror, I paused for a moment. It turns out I can look this beautiful. For 3 years, to match Damien's corporate image, I had dressed modestly, safely, afraid to draw attention. Now, I didn't need to hold back. At 8:50 a.m., I arrived at the high-rise law firm in Midtown. Damien was already waiting in the lobby. He wore a sharp black suit, his hair perfectly styled, but dark circles shadowed his eyes. It looked like he hadn't slept at all. Seeing me step out of the elevator, he stared in shock. He clearly hadn't expected me to look so radiant. Anna, he stepped forward, trying to grab my hand. Let's talk somewhere else. I took a step back, dodging his grasp. Let's go inside. Anna, he lowered his voice. Don't force my hand. Think about what you're going to do after a divorce. You have no degree, no job, no network. You won't be able to feed yourself. What will you tell your parents? Your mom is still in that hospital. Who's going to pay her medical bills if we divorce? I sneered inwardly. He knew my mother was ill and had always used it to manipulate me. But he didn't know that my father had moved my mother to a premier private clinic in Europe months ago where a single day of treatment cost more than the monthly allowance he gave me. But I wasn't going to tell him that. You don't need to worry about that. Just have your lawyers draft the papers. Damien's face darkened completely. He stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly smiled. It was a vicious smile. Fine, Anna, you want a divorce. You've got it, but I'm setting the terms right now. If we divorce, you walk away with nothing. The house, the car, the bank accounts. You don't get a single dime. You sign a total waiver. Perfect, I said. He froze, likely not expecting me to agree so easily. What did you say? I said. Perfect. I'll walk away with nothing. I enunciated every syllable. Have them print the papers. I don't want a thing from you. Damien's gaze grew complicated. He looked me up and down, trying to figure out my angle, but ultimately decided I was just terrified of his threats and caving in. He cleared his throat. Smart girl. He chuckled coldly and strode into the conference room. I followed him, counting silently in my head. 3, 2, 1 soon. You'll find out what the real price is. The legal process was remarkably fast. In 3 years, we had no children. As for assets, we signed a binding separation agreement. I waived my rights to all marital property, including the Greenwich estate and the Porsche. The senior partner, looking over the finalized document, couldn't help but ask, Mrs. Sterling, are you absolutely sure about this? You are legally entitled to a substantial portion of these assets. I'm sure, I replied. Damien, standing nearby, smiled smugly and even added hypocritically, even though we're divorced, if you ever find yourself in a desperate spot, you can always reach out to me. I ignored him when I walked out of the skyscraper with a copy of the filed divorce agreement in my hand. The Manhattan sun was shining brightly. I looked at the legal packet and suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Damon followed me out and mocked. Anna, it's not too late to change your mind. Just apologize and maybe I'll take you back. I turned and smiled at him. Damien, do you honestly believe I can't survive without you? Can you? He shoved his hands in his pockets, looking down his nose at me. Who do you think you are? You're just some girl I picked out of the Midwest. I fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head, and you should be grateful. And now you're walking away with 0 assets. Not a penny to your name. Tell me, where are you going to go? Where I go doesn't matter. I said, what matters is that very soon you're going to realize exactly who you lost today. Damien frowned, evidently deciding I was just bluffing to save face. I didn't say another word to him. I turned to the street and raised my hand to hail a yellow cab. Where to? The driver asked. JFK Airport behind me. Damien shouted, Anna, you're going to regret this. I didn't look back. While the cab navigated the traffic toward Queens, my phone rang. It was my now ex-mother-in-law, Teresa Sterling. How to describe her? A classic Upper East Side socialite, domineering and utterly snobbish. She had always despised me, believing that a girl from Middle America was beneath her precious son. In our 3 years of marriage, during every holiday dinner at their Hamptons estate, she hadn't given me a single kind look. The most egregious incident was last Thanksgiving. The whole extended family was at the table, and she announced in front of everyone, Anna, dear, are you having fertility issues? Damien is 30, and there is still no heir. The Sterling family has always passed the legacy to a son. We can't have the lineage stop with you. I stayed quiet that day, and Damon didn't say a word to defend me. Looking back, I should have flipped the dining table. I answered the call. Teresa's voice was as sharp as a knife. Anna, have you lost your mind? You dared to divorce my son, and you left with nothing. Are you mentally unwell? I leaned against the window and replied calmly. The papers are signed and filed. If you called to congratulate me, just say so. Congratulate you. Bah. Teresa was practically vibrating with rage. Listen to me. The fact that you left with nothing is exactly how it should be. Everything belongs to our family anyway. You didn't deserve a dime, but the fact that you divorced him, How am I supposed to show my face in our social circles? What will people say that the Stirrings bullied a defenseless woman? I laughed out loud. And what do you want? For me to crawl back and remarry him? Keep dreaming, and rest assured, I have no desire to ever step foot in your house again. Teresa's voice grew louder. I'm calling to warn you. From this day forward, do not utter a single word about this to anyone. Don't you dare mention you were ever associated with the Sterling family, and don't even think about going to the press. If you dare run your mouth, I will bury you. Don't worry. Your family's business bores me to tears. I hung up immediately after. My phone blew up. All the society wives who used to call me their dear friend were ringing one after another. Their voices dripped with morbid curiosity. Anna, sweetie, I heard you and Damon finalized a divorce today. Is it true? Oh my God, how could you? Damien is one of the most eligible billionaires in New York. They say you walked away with nothing. Are you crazy? You should have hired a shark. Oh, what are you going to do now? You don't even have an apartment. I answered every call. My voice remained completely steady. Yes, we divorced. Yes, I walked away with nothing. No, I didn't take a dime. Thanks for your concern. The last call was from my best friend, Morgan. She was the daughter of a prominent New York real estate family, and we were incredibly close. I shared everything with her, and when I first suspected Damon of cheating, she was the first person I told. Anna, Morgan's voice was frantic. Did you really divorce him? I thought you were just trying to scare him. Why did you act so rashly? It wasn't rash. I thought it through thoroughly. I replied, but you left with nothing. How are you going to live? Morgan's tone suddenly shifted, taking on a strange, probing quality. Do you have some secret savings? Or maybe your parents? My parents are ordinary people. What kind of money would they have? It's fine. I'll figure something out. And what are your plans? I'm moving to Europe. I need a change of scenery. Morgan went quiet for a few seconds, then said, well, okay, text me when you land. Oh, by the way, Sarah just called me. She said she feels terrible and wants to take you to dinner to apologize. I scoffed. Sarah called her. Since when were they so buddy-buddy? No need. Tell her not to forget to wash my nightgown. After hanging up, I leaned against the window, watching the New York skyline fade into the distance. The city where I had lived for 3 years. It had been foreign to me, then familiar, and now foreign once again. In truth, I never belonged here anyway. The cab pulled up to Terminal 4 at JFK. I walked to the counter and bought a first-class ticket on the next flight out. Destination, London. That was where my father's global headquarters were located, and that was where I had grown up. Yes, I, Anna Preston, was never a small-town girl. My father, Victor Preston, is the founder of Vanguard Renaissance Holdings, a global investment fund managing hundreds of billions of dollars. The fund has massive presences on Wall Street, in the city of London, and Hong Kong. It's an absolute titan of the global financial market. Until I was 18, I lived abroad with my father. Then my mother fell ill and wanted to return to the U.S., specifically to her quiet hometown in Ohio, to ensure her final years were peaceful. My father obscured our identities, letting everyone believe I came from an ordinary working-class family. Later, my mother's condition stabilized, and I went to college in New York. During my sophomore year, I met Damien. He pursued me relentlessly. I fell for his charm, thinking I had found true love. My father tried to talk me out of it, warning me that this man's intentions weren't pure, that I shouldn't marry him. But I refused to listen and stubbornly stood my ground. My father couldn't change my mind and finally agreed, but on one condition: we would keep my true identity a secret. He wanted to see if Damien truly loved me or if he was just looking for a docile wife while he chased money and power. The results proved my father right. Damien never truly loved me. He married me because I was easy to control. I had no connections, no backing in his world. I posed zero threat. He could keep mistresses on the side and plot behind my back with absolute impunity because he believed I didn't have the power to fight back. It's a shame he didn't know. I, Anna Preston, was never a lamb waiting for the slaughter, sitting in the first-class lounge. I pulled out my phone and found my father's number. The contact read, Dad. I stared at the screen, replaying Damon's words in my head. She wouldn't last a day without me. A small town, nobody with zero connections. Once I trick her out of her shares, she'll be useless. My finger pressed the call button. The line rang. Yes, a confident, commanding male voice answered. I could hear the faint impatience of a busy man. Anna, you finally decided to call your old man. Hearing his voice, my nose stung and tears welled up in my eyes. Dad, my voice trembled, but I tried to hold it together. I divorced Damien. The line went dead silent for a moment. When my father spoke again, his voice was unnervingly calm. When this morning, did he hurt you? No. I filed for it. I walked away with nothing. Nothing. My father's voice ticked up slightly before returning to that terrifying calm. Anna, tell me the truth. Did he force you? Did he do something to cause you pain? I took a deep breath, fighting back tears. Dad, he had someone else. His secretary, Sarah. They've been sleeping together in our house for at least a year. Fine. That's all I need to know. I heard the scrape of a chair moving, followed by my father's brisk footsteps. I heard him speaking to someone else in the room. His voice was as cold as ice. Pull every file we have on Sterling Enterprises. I want a forensic level breakdown of their entire operation. Then his voice returned to the phone. Anna, listen to me. Where are you right now? At JFK, getting on a flight to London. Good. Come straight here. I'll be waiting. His tone suddenly softened, becoming incredibly gentle. Anna, you did the right thing. That man was never worthy of you. I told you he wasn't a good match. I know. Dad, I was stupid. I made you worry. Silly girl. You will always be my daughter. My father paused, then said exactly what I had been waiting to hear. By the way, you mentioned walking away. I've already given the order. Every single dollar Vanguard Renaissance has invested in Sterling Enterprises is being pulled today. The corners of my mouth, finally, curved into a smile. Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me. A father is just helping his little girl blow off some steam. I could hear the chuckle in his voice, but it was a laugh that would send shivers down anyone's spine. Damon Sterling, your good days were officially over. After talking to my father, I felt infinitely lighter. Most people wouldn't believe it, but before marrying Damien, I had lived in London for 12 years. My British accented English was practically flawless. My social circle had consisted entirely of City of London elites and global royalty. At my father's insistence, I had attended Cambridge to study finance. Though I dropped out when I moved back to the States, I retained every ounce of what I learned. For 3 years of marriage, I played a part. I played the obedient, meek, coolest wife, not because I feared him, but because I wanted to see if this man was truly worthy of entrusting my life to. The verdict was crystal clear. He was not. While waiting for my flight, I browsed the duty-free shops, bought designer sunglasses and a few magazines. Sitting by the gate, I flipped through them. A young woman sitting next to me, who also appeared to be waiting for an international flight, kept glancing my way. Suddenly, she leaned in and asked, "Excuse me, are you Anna Sterling?" I looked up at her, a bit surprised. "You know me." Her eyes lit up. "It is you. I'm a financial reporter for Bloomberg. I saw you at the Sterling Enterprises holiday gala last year. Oh my God, what are you doing here?" I smiled. "I'm heading overseas with Mr. Sterling." She looked around. "Is he not with you?" "We're divorced." I said it very calmly. The reporter's jaw practically hit the floor. "Divorced, Mrs. Sterling. Are you serious?" From Damon Sterling. "Yes, exactly him." The woman's hands started shaking. I knew she was thrilled. This was massive news. If she broke this story, her career would skyrocket. But I didn't mind. Damon was going to find out what happened when you crossed Anna Preston sooner or later anyway. "Mrs. Sterling, may I? Could I get a quick, exclusive interview with you?" She pulled out a digital recorder, her voice trembling. I thought about it and nodded. "All right, ask away. Why did you get divorced?" He was sleeping with his mistress in our home. "What? Who is she?" "His executive assistant, Sarah Sutton." "Oh, and how much did you get in the settlement?" I walked away with nothing. I didn't take a single dime. The reporter's eyes went round as saucers. Nothing. Mrs. Sterling, are you crazy? He was at fault. You could have taken him to the cleaners in court. I smiled. There was no need. I have absolutely no interest in what he has. The reporter opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. She probably thought I was just trying to sound tough. A woman walking away empty-handed, saying she had no interest in the Sterling fortune. It sounded like pure sour grapes, but I didn't bother explaining. They announced boarding. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and said to the reporter, "Go back and write a great piece, and make sure you spell Sarah's name right." She nodded in a daze. "Mrs. Sterling, do you really not have any regrets?" I put on my sunglasses, looked back at her, and said, "I do regret something. I regret not divorcing him sooner." I boarded the plane and found my seat in first class. It was spacious and private. I sat down, buckled my seat belt, and pulled out my phone to turn it on airplane mode. Just then, it rang, an unknown number. I answered. A woman's voice came through the line, trembling with fake tears. "Mrs. Sterling, it's me, Sarah." I raised an eyebrow. "Sarah, what's the matter?" "Mrs. Sterling, I am so sorry." Her voice sounded entirely sincere. "I know I shouldn't have been with Damien, but we are truly in love. You did the right thing by leaving him. You guys just weren't meant for each other anyway." I chuckled. "Sarah, are you calling to ask for my blessing?" "No, that's not what I meant," she stammered. "I just wanted to say Damien was a wreck last night. He drank so much, and he kept calling your name. You're still in his heart, and maybe you could give him another chance." Her tone suddenly grew urgent. "Mrs. Sterling, if you come back, I'll leave. I promise I'll step aside for you." I almost burst out laughing. This was classic Sarah. She was pretending to ask me to come back, but she was really testing the waters. She wanted to know if I had truly given up everything, or if I still had cards up my sleeve to threaten her position. "No need. You two deserve each other. Have a happy life." "Mrs. Sterling, don't say that. You're making me feel worse." Her voice hitched. "I know I wronged you, but I really love Damien. But since you love him, too. By the way," I cut her off, "don't forget to wash that nightgown and mail it back to me. My mother bought it for me. It wasn't expensive, but it holds sentimental value." Sarah stayed silent for a few seconds, dropping the act entirely. "Fine, I'll send it back." I hung up and turned off my phone. The plane taxied down the runway and soared into the clouds. I looked out the window as the sprawling grid of New York City grew smaller and finally vanished beneath a sea of white. Goodbye, New York. Goodbye, Damien Sterling. Let's hope we never meet again. About 7 hours later, the plane touched down at London Heathrow. I walked out of the terminal and immediately spotted my father. Victor Preston was wearing a bespoke charcoal suit. His hair was silver, but he looked as sharp and formidable as ever. He stood beside a black Rolls-Royce Phantom, flanked by 4 massive bodyguards. He looked exactly like a mob boss from a movie. Seeing me, his eyes reened. He walked briskly toward me and pulled me into a tight embrace. "My Anna's gotten so thin." His voice was thick with emotion. "You've been through so much." I pressed my face into his shoulder and finally broke down, letting the tears fall. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you." "Hush, it's okay. The most important thing is that you're home." My father rubbed my back. "Let's go. Your mother is waiting at the house. She had the chef prepare all your favorites." We got into the car. My father sat next to me, holding a thick leather binder full of documents. "What's that?" I asked. "A complete forensic breakdown of Sterling Enterprises." He opened the binder and started flipping through the pages. Every investment Project Damon has touched in the last 5 years. His partners, cash flow, all of it is right here. Exactly how much Vanguard Renaissance injected, when, and under what clauses. It's all detailed. My eyes lit up. "So, you've already started pulling the funds." My father nodded, a cold smirk playing on his lips. "At 2000 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, Sterling Enterprises will receive formal notice from Vanguard Renaissance, recalling all our investments. According to the contract, we have the right to withdraw our capital at any time without providing a reason and with 0 penalty. The clauses dictate that if Sterling breaches the terms, they owe us $40 million in liquidated damages. But if we pull out on our own initiative, we don't owe a dime. My father closed the binder and turned to me. Anna, do you know what percentage of shares Vanguard holds in Sterling Enterprises? I shook my head. 41%. My father held up a hand. Damien himself only holds 23%. His mother, Teresa, holds 8%. Combined, that's 31%. Our fund is the absolute majority shareholder of Sterling Enterprises. I gasped. 41%. That meant my father could block any board resolution Damien proposed or even team up with a few minor shareholders to strip him of his CEO title. A ruthless glint appeared in my father's eyes. Every single dollar that boy Damien Sterling has spent over these past few years, half of it was yours. He thought he was keeping you like a pet, but in reality, your father, was keeping him. I froze for 3 seconds, then couldn't hold back a laugh. Dad, that's too brutal. Brutal. My father snorted coldly. This is just the appetizer. He made my daughter suffer. I'm going to teach him the true meaning of regret. On my second day in London, a massive scandal detonated across the American business world. First, that Bloomberg reporter published her article. The headline was explosive. Sterling Enterprises CEO caught cheating with secretary. Wife walks away with nothing. The article was incredibly vivid. It detailed how I caught Damon and Sarah in the Greenwich estate, recorded them, and ruthlessly filed for divorce without taking a penny. As soon as the article dropped, Wall Street and the New York elite were buzzing. Damon's phone was ringing off the hook. Paparazzi and financial journalists besieged the Sterling Enterprises skyscraper in Manhattan. Sarah was too terrified to leave her apartment. Teresa Sterling took to Twitter to curse my name, calling me a vindictive curse on their family. I scrolled through the news on my phone, my heart completely at peace. But the real panic hit Damon the next day. The formal withdrawal notice from Vanguard Renaissance was delivered to his executive suite. Per the contract, the fund was yanking its 41% equity stake, representing roughly $150 million in operational capital. The moment the news leaked to the trading floor, Sterling Enterprises stock plummeted. In his office, Damon smashed 3 crystal vases, 2 monitors, and convened an emergency board meeting with his top executives. He assumed this was a coordinated attack by a rival firm and had no idea it was connected to me. His CFO cautiously spoke up. Mr. Sterling, we ran a deep background check on Vanguard Renaissance Holdings. The ultimate beneficial owner is Victor Preston, an American expatriate who operates mostly out of London and Hong Kong. Damon scowled. Victor Preston. Never heard of him. We hadn't either. This Victor Preston is notoriously private. He rarely appears in the media, but he wields terrifying influence in the city of London and on Wall Street. The assets under his management easily exceed hundreds of billions. Damien's frown deepened. What kind of grudge does he have against Sterling? Why pull the plug out of nowhere? The CFO stammered. We don't know the exact reason yet, but Mr. Sterling, there is one detail. His last name is Preston. Damon froze. Preston, just like Anna. Silence blanketed the boardroom for 10 agonizing seconds. Damon's face drained of color, then flushed bright red, then settled into a sickly ashen gray. He violently shot up from his seat, knocking his heavy leather chair backward with a crash. Impossible, he roared. Anna is from a middle-of-nowhere town in Ohio. Her mother was in a public county hospital and her father was some blue-collar worker. How could she possibly be Victor Preston's daughter? Mr. Sterling, we're still trying to verify. The CFO's voice grew quieter. Verify it immediately. Damon slammed his fist on the mahogany table. I want everything on Anna Preston, from the day she was born. Every single detail. Find it. That evening, Damien called me dozens of times. I ignored every single one. Then the text messages started flooding in. His tone swung wildly from fury to interrogation, then from interrogation to sheer desperation. His first text read, Anna, the capital withdrawal from Vanguard. Is this your doing? The second said, "Who the hell are you really?" This was quickly followed by, "Pick up the phone. We need to talk." And then, "Anna, I know I messed up. Just give me a chance to explain." The final message was desperate. "I am begging you, please answer the phone." I took screenshots of the messages and texted them to Sarah with a caption, "Your man is begging me. Doesn't that make you mad?" Sarah sent back a massive audio file in response. I didn't bother listening to it, but judging by the length, she was screaming curses at me. On the third day, the truth finally surfaced. Damon was handed a complete dossier on me. Anna Preston, only daughter of billionaire Victor Preston, moved abroad with her father at age 12, returned to the U.S. at 18 to care for her mother, hid her identity during her studies at NYU, met Damon Sterling sophomore year, married after graduation. Victor Preston, founder of Vanguard Renaissance, top 50 on the Forbes billionaires list, personal net worth exceeding $20 billion. Damon sat at his desk holding the file, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He remembered his own words. "A small town nobody with zero connections. She wouldn't last a day without me. I'll toss her $1 million settlement." Every word felt like a physical slap across his face. He remembered how 3 years ago when he asked to marry me, Victor Preston had only one condition: keep her background quiet and have a small private wedding. Damon had been confused back then. Why didn't the bride's parents demand a massive dowry or a lavish society wedding? He had assumed it was because of their lower-ass background, that they were afraid of being embarrassed around the New York elite. Now, he understood Victor Preston wasn't afraid of embarrassment. He was testing him, and for 3 years Damien had scored a massive, spectacular 0 on that test. But a far heavier blow was waiting for him. The withdrawal of funds was only step one. Immediately after, Victor Preston contacted the other major shareholders of Sterling Enterprises and offered to buy their voting shares at a 30% premium above market value. A 30% premium meant billions in profit. What shareholder could resist that kind of payout? They all dumped their shares to Vanguard. In just 1 week, Victor Preston's equity in Sterling Enterprises skyrocketed from 41% to 67%. This meant Victor Preston was now the absolute, undisputed majority owner. He could call an emergency shareholder meeting at any moment, strip Damien of his CEO title, and purge the entire Sterling family from the company they had founded. Damon was broken. He booked a desperate flight to London and found my father's corporate headquarters in the city. He stood at the entrance, but security refused to let him in. Forgetting all decorum, he screamed, "I need to see Victor Preston. I need to talk to him. And Anna, where is my wife?" The guards dragged him away. He sat on the curb outside the skyscraper for an entire day. Finally, he managed to intercept my father's Rolls-Royce as it pulled out of the underground garage. Damien threw himself toward the car and dropped heavily to his knees on the pavement. "Mr. Preston." "Victor, it's me, Damien, Anna's husband. Please, you have to listen to me. It's all a massive misunderstanding. Anna and we truly love each other. I never should have divorced her. I was wrong. I made a terrible mistake." My father rolled down the tinted window and looked down at the kneeling man. His gaze was utterly detached, as if looking at an insect. "The divorce papers are signed and filed. She is no longer your wife," my father said. "Furthermore, Mr. Sterling, allow me to remind you that you have absolutely no connection to my daughter anymore. I suggest you refrain from harassing her. Otherwise, my legal team will bury you in restraining orders. Victor, I am begging you. Sterling Enterprises is my father's life's work. It cannot die because of me." Damien's voice was cracking. "How much money do you want? I'll give it all back. Just reverse your decision. Don't pull the funding. Stop the hostile takeover. I'll agree to anything." My father didn't reply. He rolled the window up and the Rolls-Royce glided smoothly away. Damon was left kneeling on the concrete. His body shook violently, tears streaming down his face. He finally realized exactly what he had lost. Damien stayed in London for 3 days. Every day, he camped outside the Vanguard offices. He didn't check into a hotel. He slept in a rental car, surviving on corner store sandwiches and bottled water, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled bespoke suit, his hair a greasy mess. The formerly arrogant New York billionaire looked like a homeless man wandering a foreign street. Someone snapped a photo of his pathetic state and uploaded it to Twitter with the headline, "Billionaire Sterling on his knees, begging his ex-wife for mercy. The woman who walked away with nothing takes the ultimate prize." The post trended #1. The comments were universally merciless. "Karma's back in New York." Sarah saw the news and called Damon in a hysterical rage. "Have you lost your goddamn mind? Why did you go groveling to that and you got on your knees? Damien, where is your pride? Where is your dignity?" Damien was sitting in his rental car, chewing on a stale sandwich. Hearing Sarah's shrill voice, he hurled the sandwich at the windshield. "Shut your mouth," he screamed. "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be in this living hell. Who the hell do you think you are? You're just a glorified secretary. How dare you yell at me?" Sarah burst into tears. "You promised you'd marry me. You said the second you dumped her, you'd put a ring on my finger. Marry you. Keep dreaming." Damon's voice was as sharp as a razor. "You know what, Sarah? The biggest regret of my miserable life is ever sleeping with you. Now, shut the hell up and stop causing me problems, or I swear to God, I'll make sure you never work in New York again." Sarah hung up, sobbing uncontrollably, but Damon had no idea that immediately after hanging up, she dialed another number, the number of that exact same Bloomberg reporter. "Hello, is this the reporter? This is Sarah Sutton, Damon Sterling's assistant. I have an exclusive about Damien and Anna. Are you interested?" The reporter naturally was ecstatic. While Damon was still trapped in London, a second nuclear bomb went off in the American press. The Mistress speaks out. Sterling promised marriage while plotting to steal wife's equity. The article featured detailed transcripts of conversations between Damien and Sarah, including that infamous quote, "As soon as I trick her into signing over her shares, she'll be useless to me. I'll toss her $1 million settlement." With that, Damon's public image was vaporized. Partners severed ties instantly. Clients fled en masse. Employees panicked. Sterling Enterprises stock went into a death spiral for a full week. The company's market cap evaporated by nearly $200 million. Meanwhile, my life in London was thriving. My father took me to a high society investor gala. I wore a custom haute couture gown, Cartier diamonds, and walked arm in arm with my father back into the world of luxury and power that was always my birthright. Many old friends recognized me and came over to say hello. "Anna, my God, is it really you? I heard you got married in New York, and then I saw the news. Thank God you dumped him. Sterling wasn't fit to shine your shoes. Come on, let me introduce you to some people. They're all single." I replied to the greetings with a polite smile, but I was in no rush to jump into a new relationship. Right now, I only wanted one thing: to watch Damon step off the edge of the cliff. On my third day after the gala, Damon finally found me. I was taking a walk with my mother in Hyde Park. She had recovered beautifully, looking radiant and smiling often. She held my hand and said, "Anna, getting a divorce was the right move. Mom supports you 100%. I never liked that Damien boy anyway." I smiled. "Mom, why didn't you tell me that before? If I had, would you have listened? You were absolutely head over heels." My mother gave me a reproachful look. "All right, enough about him. Mom wants to introduce you to some proper young men, the sons of your father's partners." As we were talking, a figure suddenly darted out from the side path and crashed to his knees right in front of me. Damien. He had lost an alarming amount of weight. His cheekbones jutted out, his eyes were sunken, and his lips were cracked. He was wearing the same dress shirt he hadn't changed in 3 days, the collar unbuttoned. He wrire of sour sweat. "Anna." His voice was inhumanly raspy. "Anna, please, I'm begging you. Forgive me. I was wrong. I finally understand." My mother was terrified and instinctively stepped in front of me to shield me. I patted her arm, signaling that everything was fine, and looked down at the kneeling man. "Damien, get up. The ground is cold. I won't get up until you forgive me. I'll stay kneeling here forever." Tears streamed freely down his face. "Anna, Remember how good we had it. Remember all the happy moments. I truly love you. Sarah, that was just a moment of stupidity. I never should have touched her. Just forgive me. I'll fire her immediately. I swear on my life, I'll never look at another woman again. I crouched down so we were at eye level. Damien, you don't love me. You love my money. No. He shook his head frantically. Anna, I swear I love you. It has nothing to do with the money. Give me a chance. Let's get remarried. I'll listen to you on everything. Wherever you want to live, we'll live there. Wherever you want to go, I'll go with you. And if I didn't have money, I asked quietly, if my father wasn't Victor Preston, if I truly was just a small-town girl from Ohio with nothing to my name, would you be kneeling here right now begging for my forgiveness? Damon opened his mouth, but couldn't force a single word out. I stood up and smiled at him. Damon, your answer is written all over your face. Just then, a male voice called out from behind me. Anna, there you are. I've been looking everywhere. I turned and saw Andrew walking toward us. Andrew Vance, heir to Vance Global Holdings, the son of my father's closest business partner, and my childhood friend who grew up with me in London. He wore a crisp white button-down, sleeves rolled up to the elbows, holding a massive bouquet of flowers with a bright smile. Seeing Damien kneeling on the ground, Andrew raised an eyebrow in surprise. This is Damien, I said indifferently. My ex-husband. Andrew's expression shifted slightly, but he immediately smiled, stepped up, and naturally wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Oh, so this is the guy. What are you doing here? Begging for your job back. Damon glared viciously at Andrew's hand resting on my shoulder. His eyes were filled with pure venom. Who the hell are you? Andrew looked at me, then looked back at Damien. I'm Anna's fiancé. Do you have a problem with that? My eyelids twitched. Fiancé. Andrew certainly was bold, but Damon bought it completely. All the remaining color drained from his face, leaving it as white as a sheet. His lips trembled, his whole body went limp, and he slumped back onto the pavement. Fiancé, you already have a fiancé, he muttered, his eyes going totally vacant. Andrew handed me the flowers for you. Congratulations on your freedom. I took the bouquet and smiled at him. Thank you. Then, linking my arm through Andrew's, I delivered my final words to Damien. Damien, go back to New York and deal with the ashes of your company. Don't come looking for me again. It's useless. With that, holding Andrew's arm and supporting my mother, I walked right past him. Behind me, his agonizing, soul-tearing scream echoed across the park. Anna, Anna, you can't do this to me. I did so much for you. You can't. I never looked back. When Damien returned from London, he was a different person. He used to walk with his head held high, spoke sharply, and looked down on everyone. Now, he locked himself in his office all day, refusing to see anyone, not even his most trusted executives. The company was in a death spiral. Employees were resigning in droves. Partners were terminating contracts. Sterling Enterprises went from being a top-tier New York firm to a sinking ship, barely keeping the lights on. And right at that moment, Sarah reappeared. She wore a loose, fitting maternity dress, her belly noticeably rounded, and showed up at the lobby of Sterling Enterprises. The security guard didn't even recognize her at first. Before, Sarah was always impeccably styled. High heels, designer bags, flawless makeup. Now, she wore no makeup, her hair tied in a messy ponytail, but her face carried a look of smug, absolute confidence. I need to see Mr. Sterling, she told the guard. The guard hesitated, but eventually let her up. Sarah took the elevator to the executive floor and pushed open the door to Damon's office. He was slumped in his chair, eyes closed, hearing the noise. He opened them. Seeing Sarah, a look of pure disgust twisted his features. What the hell are you doing here? He asked coldly. Sarah walked in unhurriedly, dropped her bag on the sofa, turned to him, and deliberately stroked her belly. Damien, I'm pregnant, she said. The baby is yours. Damon froze. He stared at her stomach for 5 solid seconds, then bolted upright. His voice shook. What did you say? I'm pregnant. Sarah pulled a sonogram out of her bag and slapped it onto his desk. 12 weeks. Everything is perfectly healthy. It's a boy. Damon snatched the ultrasound and stared at it. His hands were trembling. His expression morphed from shock into something incredibly complicated. This baby is mine. Huh. Sarah's eyes re-ained with fake tears. What is that supposed to mean? Damien, do you think I would lie to you about something this massive? If you don't believe me, we can do a paternity test the second he's born. Damien fell silent. He slumped back into his chair, examining the sonogram over and over before finally letting out an exhausted sigh. How much money do you want? Sarah stiffened. She clearly hadn't expected that reaction. I don't want your money, she said, her voice dripping with manufactured hurt. I want you to marry me. Marry you. Damien let out a hollow, bitter laugh. Sarah, do you think I'm in any position to get married right now? Look at what's happening to Sterling Enterprises. I'm about to file for Chapter 11. What exactly do you gain from marrying me? I don't care. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You promised me. You said as soon as you dumped her, you'd marry me. And now I'm pregnant. Your son is growing inside me, and you're trying to throw us away. Damien closed his eyes and massaged his temples. He was beyond exhausted. The corporate collapse had already pushed him to the breaking point. And now Sarah was piling this on him. He wanted to scream at her, but glancing at her belly, he held it in. Go home, he said flatly. I'll think about it. Think about it. Sarah's voice spiked in pitch. Damien, how long are you going to think until the baby is born? You won't even give me the dignity of a title. How am I supposed to look my friends in the eye? I said, I'll think about it. Damon slammed his hand on the desk. Go home. Don't cause a scene here. Sarah wiped her tears, copped her bag, and headed for the door. She stopped, turning back to look at Damien with a dark, calculating glint in her eyes. Damien, she said quietly, you're going to regret this. The door clicked shut. Damon sat alone in the dim office, staring at the ultrasound. His mind was a chaotic mess. What he didn't know was that after leaving the building, Sarah didn't go home. She took a cab to an exclusive private clinic on the Upper East Side. She had an inside connection there. Sarah strode confidently into the OBGYN department and met with Dr. Lawson, a physician who also happened to be her old college roommate. Emily, did you find that pregnant girl I asked you about? Sarah whispered. The doctor nodded and pulled a file from her desk drawer. I found her. She's scheduled for a termination tomorrow morning. She has the exact same blood type as you, and the gestational age matches perfectly. I altered her ultrasound, swapped out the name for yours. Take a look. Sarah opened the folder and saw the sonogram, clipped to the front, clearly bearing her own name. On the original medical chart, the real patient's name had been redacted. Emily, this stays strictly between us. Sarah slipped an envelope containing $5, 000 in cash into the doctor's lab coat pocket. If you keep your mouth shut, I'll make sure you're well taken care of once I'm the new Mrs. Sterling. The doctor smiled and patted the pocket. Don't worry. I know how things work in this zip code. I know what to say and what not to say. Sarah nodded in deep satisfaction, took the forged medical file, and left. 3 days later, Sarah pulled an even bolder stunt. She flew to London. She somehow tracked down my residential address and waited to ambush me outside. I was walking back from a high-end grocer with a few bags, seeing Sarah standing on my front steps. I paused for a second, then couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sarah, you've got some nerves showing your face here. Sarah, deliberately thrusting her stomach forward, stood on the top step, looking down at me. Her chin was held high, her eyes practically daring me. Anna, I came to tell you something. She placed a dramatic hand on her belly. I'm pregnant. It's Damien's baby. The ultrasound shows it's a boy, the Sterling family heir. I shifted my groceries to my other hand, leaned against the gate, and looked at her. And don't think you've won. Her voice vibrated with twisted triumph. So what if your daddy bought out Sterling Enterprises? Big deal. At the end of the day, Damon chose my child. When he's born, he'll be the legitimate heir to the Sterling legacy. And you, a barren woman, will never be able to compete with me. I stared at her, genuinely amused. The woman had clearly lost her grip on reality. I'm already divorced. What do I care about a Sterling heir? I said, smoothly. Sarah, Whoever's kid is kicking around in there is absolutely none of my business. If you flew across the Atlantic just to brag, you've got the wrong house. I truly do not care. Sarah's expression faltered, but she quickly forced her smug smile back into place. You don't care. Anna, drop the act. Your father destroyed Sterling Enterprises entirely because you were throwing a tantrum over me. And now what? I'm carrying his child. You destroyed a family, tore a father away from his unborn son. You're a toxic, vindictive woman. I almost laughed in her face. Are you done? I asked. No, I'm not. Sarah took a step down, lowering her voice menacingly. Anna, I came here to tell you this. If you keep sicking your father on Damien, I'm going straight to the press. I'll tell them you're jealous of my pregnancy, that you're seeking revenge out of pure spite, and that you're using your billionaire daddy's hedge fund to illegally crush your ex-husband. Guess whose side the public will take. I tilted my head and asked her very seriously, Sarah, are you absolutely sure that baby is Damien's? Sarah's eyes flickered with a split second of panic, but she recovered quickly. Of course it is. If you don't believe me, we'll run a DNA test when he's born. Great. I smiled brightly. Let's wait for the birth and run the test. Sarah's face finally cracked. She glared at me with pure venom, then spun around and stomped away. I stood by the door, watching her retreat. A plan was already forming in my head. Sarah wasn't a simple mistress. She was smart, too smart, calculating every single move. But clever people often outsmart themselves. The more she scrambled, the more of a paper trail she left behind. I pulled out my phone and texted my father. Dad, I need you to run a background check on someone for me. Sarah Sutton. I need to know her every movement over the last 3 months. Specifically which clinics she visited and which doctor she spoke to. My father replied instantly with one word. Done. Meanwhile, back in New York, Damon's world was collapsing. Vanguard Renaissance finalized a total hostile takeover of Sterling Enterprises. Victor Preston, holding 67% equity, was now the absolute dictator of the company. He convened an emergency board meeting and passed 3 unilateral resolutions. First, terminate Damon Sterling as CEO and chairman of the board. Second, a massive restructuring of the SOIT, purging every member of the Sterling family from executive roles. Third, initiate a brutal forensic audit of all Sterling Enterprises financials from the past 5 years. With those signatures, Damien lost total control of his legacy. He sat in his office, staring at his termination letter, feeling utterly hollow. His remaining assistant stood nervously nearby. Mr. Sterling, should I start packing these things into boxes? Damon didn't speak. His eyes were locked on a crystal trophy on his desk. New York Business Journal's Entrepreneur of the Year. He had won it 3 years ago. That night, Anna had worn a stunning white gown. She held his arm, smiling so beautifully for the cameras. Back then, he thought he owned the world. Now, he realized he had been holding on to a soap bubble, and he was the one who had popped it. Throw it all in the trash. Damien stood up, his voice growly. Leave everything. When he walked out of the executive suite, the hallways were lined with employees. Some looked at him with Schad and Freude, others with cold indifference, a few with pity. Damien walked through the crowd, looking straight ahead. His back was straight, his strides long. He still tried to look like the decisive Damon Sterling, but only he knew his soul had been hollowed out. Stepping out onto Wall Street, he turned back to look at the skyscraper. The afternoon sun reflected off the glass, blinding him. He suddenly remembered his father's dying words. Damien, this company is the work of 3 generations. You have to protect it. Protect it. He hadn't. He had gambled away Sterling Enterprises to Anna. No more accurately, he had gambled it away to his own arrogance and stupidity. Damon was forced to move out of the family's historic Manhattan townhouse. His mother, Teresa, had to sell the property, not by choice, but because Victor Preston's lawyers seized several real estate assets held in her name, proving they were purchased with illegally funneled corporate dividends. Overnight, Teresa went from an elite socialite to a homeless, disgraced widow. She called Damien, sobbing hysterically. Son, I have nowhere to go. What am I supposed to do? Damien, grinding his teeth, used the absolute last of his personal liquid cash to rent her a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. Teresa stood in the cramped 800-square-foot space and wailed, I'm 60 years old and I've never lived in a dump like this. Damon stayed silent. He pulled out his phone, stared at my number for a long time, but never pressed call. He knew it was pointless. Just as Damon was teetering on the edge of total despair, an unexpected figure appeared. Ian Baker. Ian Baker was the heir to Baker Capital and Damon's longtime bitter rival. They had hated each other since their Ivy League days, and their cutthroat competition in the corporate world was legendary. Ian tracked Damon down and invited him to a dive bar in Brooklyn. I hear you're going through a rough patch, Ian said, sipping a craft beer with a faint smirk. Damien glared at him, his eyes dead. Did you come here just to kick me while I'm down? No. Ian pulled a manila folder out of his briefcase and slid it across the sticky table. I came to throw you a lifeline. Damien looked at the documents. It was a term sheet. Baker Capital was offering to front Damien $5 million in seed money to launch a new venture. Damien froze. Why? He asked. You're my biggest competitor. Why the hell would you help me? Ian leaned back. Because I don't like how this Victor Preston, this foreign-based globalist capital, is coming in and crushing local New York legacy firms. Sterling Enterprises was a New York institution. It shouldn't be controlled by some outsider. That's not the whole truth. Damon stared him down. Ian chuckled. No, it's not. Anna, after she dumped you, she found herself a new boy toy in London. You know who he is. Damien shook his head. Andrew Vance of Vance Global Holdings. Victor Preston and the Vance family are preparing to merge their empires through marriage. Once they unite, local outfits like mine won't stand a chance in this city. Ian's eyes darkened. So, by keeping you in the game, I'm keeping myself in the game. Damien sat in silence for a long time. Then he took a pen and signed the contract. He didn't know that this decision was pushing him off the final cliff because Ian Baker had absolutely no intention of helping him. Ian had struck a backroom deal with Victor Preston. The plan: Ian would lure Damien into dumping the $5 million, plus leveraging his own massive personal debts into a completely fabricated shell project. When the money vanished, the project would implode, leaving Damien with liabilities so catastrophic he wouldn't be able to pay them off in 3 lifetimes. In exchange, Victor would give Baker Capital a slice of the liquidated Sterling assets. Damon thought he had grabbed a life preserver. In reality, he had chained himself to an anchor. When the news reached London, I was having dinner with Andrew. He showed me a text on his phone. Your ex just signed a joint venture with Ian Baker. I glanced at the headline and smiled. Ian Baker, that massive hypocrite. Damon teaming up with him is basically signing his own death warrant. He's desperate. Desperate men grab onto anything. Andrew placed a perfectly seared piece of wagyu on my plate. But this is perfect. Let him struggle a bit longer. When he digs the hole deep enough, your father will bury him, and he'll never climb out. I put down my fork and knife, looking at Andrew. Seriously, what exactly have you and my father been plotting? Andrew blinked, a sly smile spreading across his face. Trade secret. Andrew. Okay, I'll tell you. Andrew leaned in and whispered. Your dad is essentially buying out Baker Capital's competitors. The condition was that Ian had to play along and bait Damien into pouring all his leveraged cash into a ghost project. When Damien blows through the $5 million, the floor drops out and he'll be buried in so much debt he'll be a wage slave for life. I exhaled sharply. It was an incredibly brutal play. So, I said slowly, every single contract Damien is signing right now is just another nail in his coffin. Exactly. Andrew smiled and raised his wine glass to the grave of Damon Sterling. I smiled and clinked my glass against his. 2 weeks later, Sarah's stomach had popped considerably. She posted photos on Instagram every single day, flaunting her blessed life. Hubby bought me this today. Little guy is kicking so much. She attached photos with Damien in them. His smile was painfully forced, but he played along. He played along because Sarah held the ultimate blackmail over his head. The baby. If he didn't obey her, she threatened to get an abortion and run to the tabloids, crying that he abandoned his pregnant fiancée in his darkest hour. Damien had zero fight left in him. He was drowning in debt. His company was gone. His reputation was radioactive. He was living in a cheap rental. Sarah was the only thing he had left. At least she was carrying his flesh and blood. He had no idea the child wasn't his. In London, I received the full background check on Sarah. The private investigators my father hired on Wall Street were terrifyingly efficient. In less than a week, they had mapped out Sarah's every movement over the past 3 months. When the report landed on my desk, I was sitting in my London penthouse sipping an espresso. I flipped it open, and the very first page made me smile. Sarah Satin, Dua Anam, NYC resident, unmarried, visited Mount Sinai Private Clinic 3 times in the last 90 days. Met exclusively with Dr. Emily Lawson, OBGYN, Satin's former college roommate. Dr. Emily Lawson, 28, married, received multiple untraceable cash deposits totaling $5,000 in the past month. The rest was even better. The PIS had hacked the clinic's internal database. They proved that Dr. Lawson had doctored the medical file of another patient, an Irene Z, 26, unmarried, 14 weeks pregnant, scheduled for a termination due to financial hardship. Dr. Lawson had scrubbed Irene's name from the ultrasound, replaced it with Sarah's, and forged an entire prenatal history. I set down my espresso and texted Sarah. Sarah, are you absolutely certain the baby in your stomach belongs to Damien? Sarah replied rapidly, highly defensive. What the hell is that supposed to mean? You say something like that again, and I'll sue you for defamation. I didn't argue. I simply sent her screenshots of the PI as evidence, the forged medical records, Dr. Lawson's bank deposits, and Irene Z signed abortion consent forms. I waited exactly 3 minutes. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Her voice was shaking violently. How? How did you get this? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you've been lying to Damien. That baby isn't his. It belongs to a woman who is going to terminate. You paid Dr. Lawson $5,000 to fake your ultrasound and chart. Sarah choked on a sob. Anna, listen to me. I panicked. I didn't mean to do it. Whether you meant to or not is none of my business. I just think you should tell Damon the truth. After all, he thinks he's the father. He has a right to know. No. Sarah screamed into the phone. You can't tell him. He'll kill me if he finds out. I didn't say another word and hung up. Then I zipped all the evidence files into a single encrypted folder and emailed it directly to Damien. The moment I hit send, I leaned back against the sofa cushions and took a deep, satisfied breath. Damien received the email while sitting in his depressing Queens rental eating a styrofoam cup of instant ramen. The former billionaire, the man who used to dine exclusively at Michelin-starred restaurants, couldn't afford a real meal. He ate ramen and stale crackers every day, funneling every single penny he could scourge into Ian Baker's project. He had no idea it was a bottomless pit. His phone dinged with a new email. He set the noodles down and picked it up. Sender Anna Preston. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he opened it. The email contained only one sentence. Look at whose child this really is. Below it was a download link. He clicked it, unzipped the file, and stared at the documents. He swiped through them one by one. His eyes widened, his face turning a sickly, ghostly white. When he saw the original ultrasound, Irene Z.'s consent forms and the bank transfers to Dr. Lawson, his hands began to shake violently. He knocked over the cup of ramen, spilling boiling broth all over the cheap folding table. He didn't even notice. Lies. It's all lies. He muttered. It's not my kid. She played me. Damien sprang up, kicking his chair backward. He grabbed his phone and dialed Sarah. She picked up, her voice trembling and cautious. Damien. Sarah. Damon's voice was a low, feral growl. Whose bastard is in your stomach? Dead silence on the line for 3 seconds. And then Sarah broke down into hysterical sobs. Damien, please listen to me. It's not what you think. Who is it? Damon roared. My ex-boyfriends. Sarah choked out through tears. I didn't find out I was pregnant until after we broke up. He wouldn't claim the baby, and I couldn't afford it on my own. So, you faked the ultrasound to trap me. Damien's voice turned to ice. You made me think I was going to be a father. You made me scrape together pennies to take care of some other loser's bastard. Damien, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I'll get an abortion. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave me. You're all I have left. Damien took a deep breath. His voice suddenly dropped, becoming terrifyingly calm. Sarah, where are you at? At home in my apartment. Stay right there. Damien hung up, threw on his jacket, and stormed out. When he kicked open the door to Sarah's apartment, she was curled on the couch, eyes swollen from crying. Seeing him, she scrambled up, thrusting her belly forward defensively. Damon struck her across the face with the back of his hand. The blow was so violent it sent Sarah crashing to the floor. A trickle of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. She covered her face, staring up at him in sheer terror. You, Damon pointed a shaking finger at her. You forced me to play daddy to a stranger's kid. You tried to blackmail me into marrying you. Do you have a single shred of human decency in you? Sarah crawled forward, weeping, and wrapped her arms around his legs. Damien, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Hit me. Curse at me. Whatever you want. Just please don't throw me out. Damon kicked her away, his face twisted in pure revulsion. Get the hell out of my sight. If I ever see you again, I'll end you. He turned around, slammed the door, and walked out. Sarah lay on the floor, weeping uncontrollably for a long time. Then she slowly pushed herself up, grabbed her phone, and dialed a number. Hello, is this the reporter from Bloomberg? It's Sarah. I want to go on the record with a massive whistleblower drop on Damon Sterling. I have everything. Sarah's retaliation was swift, lethal, and absolute. She handed over a mountain of flash drives, chat logs, internal wire transfers, and audio recordings. They detailed every dirty deed Damon had orchestrated over the last 5 years. Massive tax evasion, bribing city officials, defrauding corporate partners, shell company laundering. The moment the expose was published, the SEC and the FBI descended. Damon was arrested and dragged out in handcuffs. He spent 48 hours in federal holding, interrogated relentlessly. When he was finally released on bail, he looked like he had aged 20 years. The feds froze all his remaining bank accounts. His rental cars were repossessed. His landlord saw the news and immediately evicted him, changing the locks on the Queen's apartment. Teresa Sterling completely disowned him. "You're no son of mine," she screamed into the phone. "You have disgraced the Sterling name. Your father is rolling in his grave. I have no son." Damien stood on the sidewalk as the line went to a dial tone. He looked up. It was pouring rain. Freezing New York rain washed down his face, mixing with his tears. He had nothing left. No company, no money, no status, no reputation, no mother. Even the woman who had scammed him, Sarah, had vanished into the wind. He collapsed onto the wet concrete, buried his face in his hands, and wept like a child. Meanwhile, my life in London was reaching new heights. My father initiated a massive expansion of Vanguard Renaissance into the Asian markets. Andrew's Vance Global Holdings became our anchor partner. Naturally, the topic of a marriage alliance between our families was brought to the table. Yes, when Andrew claimed to be my fiancé in Hyde Park, he was improvising, but soon it became reality. A month later, on the rooftop of a glass skyscraper overlooking the Thames, Andrew dropped to one knee and proposed. "Anna," he said, "marry me." I looked down at the massive, flawless diamond ring and smiled. "When did you buy this?" "That day in the park, when I put my arm around you." I had already made up my mind. Andrew's eyes sparkled. "Marry me. I promise I will never bring another woman into your house." I smiled and held out my left hand. "If you ever dared, my dad would buy out your company in a heartbeat." Andrew slipped the ring onto my finger, stood up, and kissed my forehead. "Don't worry, I'm no Damien Sterling. I know exactly how lucky I am. The wedding took place 2 months later in an ancient, breathtaking chateau in the south of France. My father spared absolutely no expense, declaring an unlimited budget, ensuring it was the society wedding of the decade. And what about Damien? He was working on a commercial construction site out in New Jersey. Yes, hauling bricks and mixing cement. He had millions in legal debt. No corporate firm would touch him with a 10-foot pole. He had no choice but to take brutal under-the-table manual labor, $100 a day, with a cot in a shared trailer provided by the foreman. He lived in a filthy trailer with a dozen other day laborers. He ate cheap catering out of tinfoil trays, breaking his back from 600 a.m. to 600 p.m. Nobody on the site knew about his past. They just knew he was the new guy who worked himself half to death and never spoke. Sometimes he would sit alone in a corner after his shift, staring blankly at the sky. One day, a coworker asked him, "Hey, Damien, what did you used to do? You don't look like one of us." Damien froze, then lowered his head. "I was in business." "Business? What kind of business?" "It's in the past." Damien stood up. "Break's over. Got to get back to the bricks." He hoisted a heavy bag of cement onto his shoulder and trudged forward, keeping his head down. The setting sun cast a long, pathetic shadow behind him. He didn't know that on the day of my wedding, he was secretly watching the live stream. The event was being broadcasted by a major luxury lifestyle network. The chyron across the bottom of the screen read, "Billionaire Aries Anna Preston weds in extravagant French chateau ceremony." Damon watched it on a cracked smartphone in the dirt of the New Jersey job site. He saw me in my bespoke Vera Wang gown walking down the aisle on my father's arm toward Andrew. He watched Andrew slide the wedding band onto my finger, watched us kiss, watched the crowd of global elites give us a standing ovation. Tears carved tracks through the cement dust on his cheeks. He kept muttering the same thing over and over. "That should have been me. That should have been me." When the foreman walked into the trailer to yell at him to get back to work, he saw Damien's tear-streaked face and paused. "Hey, buddy, you all right?" Damien wiped his face roughly and stood up. "Yeah, I'm coming." 3 days after the wedding, Damon made a decision. He bought a Greyhound bus ticket to Ohio, riding for 12 grueling hours until he reached the town where my mother's old county hospital was located. It was a place I had mentioned to him once years ago. He knew I wasn't there, but he just wanted to look at it to find some fading echo of the past. He stood near the entrance of the hospital, staring at the brick building. Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure, Sarah. She had lost a drastic amount of weight. Her stomach was flat. She had gone through with the abortion. She wore a cheap gray pica coat, her face pale, the spark entirely gone from her eyes. Sarah saw him, too. They stood 20 feet apart, staring at each other in dead silence for 5 seconds. Then Sarah turned on her heel and walked quickly away. Damon didn't chase her. He stood rooted to the pavement, watching her figure vanish into the crowd, then turned and walked in the opposite direction. 3 months later, a massive rainstorm hit New York City. I had flown in for a Vanguard board meeting, and Andrew had tagged along. After wrapping up business, we stayed at the Plaza Hotel and were scheduled to fly back to London the next morning. That evening, Andrew was out at a dinner with some Vance global clients, and I was sitting alone in the hotel's luxury lounge, sipping a latte. Outside, the rain was coming down in sheets. I was scrolling through my iPad when I heard a familiar voice. "Anna." I looked up and saw Damien. He was standing just outside the glass doors of the hotel cafe. He wore a faded, tattered jacket. His jeans were caked in mud, and his boots were falling apart. He looked emaciated, his face weathered and exhausted, but I recognized the eyes. A hotel security guard stepped in front of him. "Sir, this is a private hotel lounge. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Damon ignored him. He stared directly at me through the glass and then slowly dropped to his knees on the wet sidewalk. The freezing rain soaked his hair and ruined clothes. "Anna." His voice was sore it was barely audible through the glass. "I am begging you. Just give me one more chance." People in the cafe started turning their heads. Some pulled out their iPhones to record the spectacle. Others whispered. I sat down my coffee cup, stood up, and walked out the automatic doors to face him. Damen, get up. No, his tears mixed with the driving rain. I won't get up until you forgive me. I know I was wrong. The biggest regret of my entire life was divorcing you. Anna, I truly love you. Please give me a chance. I'm not asking to remarry you. I'm just asking for your forgiveness. I looked down at him, my heart completely still. No anger, no sadness, nothing. This once arrogant billionaire, the man who swore I wouldn't survive a day without him, the man who held his mistress in his arms, right in front of me, was now kneeling in the mud, begging for scraps of my mercy. Damien, I forgive you. A desperate, wild light flared in his eyes, but I continued, my voice steady over the sound of the rain. I will never ever have anything to do with you again. I don't hate you for what you did, but I will never forget it. We're done. Damien, forever. Damon's tears flowed harder, washing away the dirt on his face. Right at that moment, a black town car pulled up. Andrew stepped out, holding a large black umbrella, carrying a pastry box from a famous bakery. He had brought me a late-night snack. Seeing Damien kneeling in the rain, Andrew raised an eyebrow, walked over, and naturally wrapped his arm around my waist. Let's go inside. It's freezing out here. I nodded and leaned into him. Damon screamed at my back. Anna, Anna. I didn't turn around. Andrew held the umbrella over my head, letting the rain soak his own shoulder. He leaned down and asked softly, Are you okay? Never better. The next morning, we got into a chauffeured SUV heading to JFK. As we pulled away from the hotel, I glanced out the window. Damien was still kneeling on the sidewalk. He was shivering violently. The torrential rain blurred his features. As the SUV sped away, he grew smaller and smaller in the side mirror until he finally disappeared entirely into the gray downpour. I turned away from the window and rested my head on Andrew's shoulder. Let's go home. When I arrived back in London, a package from New York was waiting for me. I opened it to find a neatly folded silk nightgown. It was from Sarah. Attached was a handwritten note. Mrs. Sterling, I washed the nightgown and am returning it to you. I am sorry. I am truly, truly sorry. I pulled the silk fabric out, smoothed it over with my hand, then folded it back up and placed it in the back of my closet. It was a gift from my mother. It had finally returned to its rightful owner. As for Damien, I heard rumors that he eventually left the tri-state area. He went far away. Nobody really knew where. Some said he moved down south and was working the line at an auto plant. Others claimed he left the country and was washing dishes in the back of a restaurant in a foreign Chinatown. Whatever the truth was, it had absolutely nothing to do with me anymore. I, Anna Preston, had begun my new life a long time ago.